Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliet Clark, and we have another really fabulous guest today. And for those of you who are looking for proposal writing and perhaps getting that traditional contract, this is going to be a really great episode for you because we're going to talk to somebody who does this regularly and knows all about it. Before we get started, don't forget to go over and grab your free subscription of Breakthrough Author Magazine. Get some tips and tricks about the media world, press releases, editing, publishing, video trailers, whatever it is where you need help understanding what exactly you need to make your launch really successful. Go over there and get your free subscription. It's a monthly magazine, so you'll get your first issue right away, and then you'll start picking up our current issues as well. So www.breakthroughauthormagazine.com. Also, don't forget to go over and follow us over on YouTube, Superbrand Publishing. If you're a podcast listener, or maybe you prefer to be a video consumer, you can see all the videos of our interviews over there. So today's guest is Joan Michelson. She's an MBA journalist, coach, and host of the acclaimed podcast, Electric Ladies, where she interviews remarkable women leaders and innovators in energy, climate, and sustainability across all industries and shares career advice. She writes for Forbes and other media and helps authors write a book that communicates their message and helps their career and business goals. She previously spent many years as a leader with the Fortune 100 companies, including Chrysler, American Express, Deloitte, and she's also mentioned that she has an MBA. You can find her podcast at www.electricladiespodcast.com. Joan, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you here today because there's so much confusion in the marketplace right now about, do I need a proposal? Do I not? Do I need to write the book first? So I'm excited to talk to someone who writes proposals as part of what you do.
I am totally jazzed to be here. And I think it's a really critical conversation that most people don't have. They don't even, in today's world, so many people are self-publishing that they just kind of go, oh, I'm going to write a book and, boom. And that's it. And it's like, no. You need to have it professionally edited. You need to think about who your reader is. You need to, do this whole lot of steps in there. It's not just, oh, I need a book. Mm-hmm. So it's like, why? To do what? Et cetera. So I'm happy to talk about it, and I'll try not to just fly into gear here.
That's okay. No, but you make some really good points here. We have so many writers workshops out there who are, write this and it'll be your business card. That's not the purpose of any book. You don't go into it. I mean, I can't even imagine. I know you've worked for a lot of large companies, so have I, going in and interviewing and saying, oh, look, here, I wrote the book on this. How arrogant. Yet that's what so many people are saying, that's what you need to do. So this is exciting.
Well, it can be a form of credibility, but A, it's not enough. And B, it's really more kind of the other way, where like when people come to me and say, I want to write a book, one of those, or my so-and-so says I need a book, or I see all these other people with a book, I need a book. And it's like, why? Like, what do you have to say? Mm-hmm. So I work with my clients about the intersection between the message that they feel compelled to get across with the skill and the expertise and the depth of knowledge that they have uniquely with where the market is. So like if we could do a little Venn diagram, it would be right that sweet spot in the middle. It's not just what it's what does that mean for the reader? What value is it going to provide for the reader, and who is the reader? And why would they, what are they going to do with this book? What are they going to get out of it? Why would they buy it? Why would they look at it? Why would they read it? But to sort of answer your fundamental questions of why do we need a book proposal, there's several reasons. One is just practically speaking, no agent will represent your book without a book proposal. They might suggest that if you send them a short overview, they'll ask you for the book proposal. If you don't have one, then you have to go off and write one, which is quite a task. It's not, it's not just a paragraph and toss it out the door. But any publisher makes a decision whether or not to buy a book off a proposal. And it has to be well written because it's got to pass through various gates of people in order to get that. You've got different, I can take you through it. You know this from your experience too, but you have to get it through what's called the sponsoring editor at the publisher, and then they take it to a table. So it's kind of like if you've ever sold or tried to sell consulting or a product to a big company, you're not just making a pitch to the person that you talk to. Then that person has to then pitch it internally, and you're not in the room for those conversations.
Yes.
In this context, your proposal, just as your pitch deck is what's selling you to those other people for your big contract, your book proposal is what's selling your book and you to the publisher. And even in some ways to the agent. You're best off even coming to an agent with at least a draft of a proposal. They will always edit it. Mm-hmm. They will always edit it. So if you're attached to what you wrote, get over it, because they're always going to edit it.
Right. Everything I write, I tell my clients, I'm not attached to this. Edit away if you feel, it's a little bit different. So if someone was to write their own proposal, what kinds of things are the people reviewing this looking for? What has to be on there that's non-negotiable?
So the first part is an overview, which is what is it? There's basically 5 parts to it. And I'll just enumerate those real quick, and then I'll tell you what each part is. There's an overview, an author's bio, a marketing plan, a competitive analysis, and sample chapters. Okay, chapter summaries and sample chapters. So I guess you could say 6 sections. So the overview is shorter. It's almost like the executive summary of a business proposal. It's about a page and a half, 2 pages max, but it's succinctly stating what your book is going to be about. And you want to grab them in the beginning. A sense of why it's unique. And you can't just say it's the only book on X, because it's not. It's just not. Right. You and I both know this. There's 1 million books published a year. Whatever you're writing about, other people have written about. Just accept it. So, and then you put in a little bit about you, what makes you unique. So the overview is in essence a small version of the rest of your proposal, an abbreviated version of the rest of your proposal. So it's literally an overview of what the book is about, why it's going to sell, who you are, who the reader is, and the who you are part also has to include how you're going to help them market it. Right. So especially in today's world, like what kind of a platform do you have? Right. Then the next section is an author's bio, which is telling the agent and ultimately the publisher why you are a good investment for them. Because you have a platform, you're going to work your butt off to sell the book, you're doing speaking gigs, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're going to have events, buy your book when they hire you to speak. You have had working in this space for 25 years or whatever the reason is that gives you this expertise, you've written X, Y, and Z on it. And so like you could do a book on advertising because of your experience at Chiat Day, right? So you have to say, you have to kind of give the wow factor. This is an awards that you've won. And it doesn't matter kind of when, the fact is you have to show them around your subject matter of your book what it is you bring to the table. So like I'm writing a book on women's careers. And so I'm talking about how I've been writing about women's careers, and I'm a career coach, and I, have this, my podcast, Electric Ladies podcast, and I'm, doing speaking on these issues, et cetera. So that demonstrates, oh, this person really knows what they're talking about. Right. So you're a credible investment. It's not quite vetting for a big, government job, but it's that kind of a thing. Right. And you have to, just to that point, they're going to check you out. So don't lie.
Right. That should go without saying, but
okay, that should go without saying. But, if you say you have 1 million followers on Twitter, they are going to go to your Twitter account. And if you don't have 1 million followers, they will say next and throw it in the garbage. Okay. So, and you will never deal with those people again. Anybody at the table, anybody who's read it. I mean, it's just like, don't do it. Okay. Just don't. Okay. Like really. If you say you have a degree from somewhere, they will find out if you did. So the next section is really, to me, the most important. It's the marketing section. Mm-hmm. And that's really important, even if you're not going to use a traditional agent or publisher. So like you're a hybrid publisher, Juliet, if somebody comes to you with a book proposal, and they have in it a marketing strategy, you're in heaven, because you know how they're going to help you market it. You know what they're going to do. They've thought out who their reader is, right? And why this particular reader is going to want this particular book. Mm-hmm. And you're going to know they're going to do this, all these speaking gigs. They're going to sell books at their speaking gigs. They're going to, yes, they're going to have them, you'll get them on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, et cetera. But you will find out that how they're going to help promote the book events they're going to do, the 10 associations that they're involved in, that they're going to have interviews. Like I'm going to be speaking at the Women's Automotive Network conference coming up in June. I could do books there. I do a fair amount of speaking engagements. I sell books there. Mm-hmm. So it makes the author not just say, oh, I need to write a book, right? But come out and really think about what they're going to say, who they're going to say it to, why that person cares, and how it's going to get into the marketplace and grow. An agent or a publisher, I mean, even hybrid publishers like you want to make money on the deal, right? You want to make sure that this book is going to be successful. In the book proposal, you also want to say what kind of graphics you're going to have, what kind of images you're going to include, and who you're going to interview that's going to help market it. One of the things that I do with my clients is I help them think about who the experts are in their field, or who the other quotables are in their field or in the topic, who would be great to either include interviews from an interview for the book, or have quotes from or research from, et cetera, preferably people who are still on the planet, so they can help promote the book. Because anytime I'm in 4 books. 4 books? Anyway, I lose track. And I did a book I'm going to lean over. If this is on video, they'll see me. So I did a book, someone did a book on my great aunt called The Superwoman. And I wrote the foreword to the book. And we did a ton of events. We did the museum, we did colleges, we did women's writings groups, we did, all over the place until COVID shut us down. Everywhere we went, we sold books, right? And so I include in mine that I did that, right? That I've been in these books. And because I'm in the book, I'm helping to promote it. Right. So use the same strategy for people that are experts in your field or who have something to add. So for example, if you're doing a book on female leaders, find a bunch of female leaders to interview for the book, and then they will help, they'll, even if they just post it on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, and they go, I loved being interviewed by Juliet for this book, right? And that's golden. Then you go to their gazillion followers, and then anybody who picks it up there who wants to please them, is going to then promote it also, right? Or their staff or their marketing department or their whatever, right? So that's a really critical piece. But to get back to the proposal, when you write the marketing section, you include all this, and it helps the agent and the publisher understand that what's involved. You will put your shoe leather to work, and you have the connections to make that happen.
Yes. And this is also, you guys, this is the validation of your audience.
Absolutely.
Because you can say my reader is XYZ, but if you're not actually connecting with those people in advance and have that following, have that platform, then all of that marketing plan is a wish and a prayer. So
that's right. And to that point, I'm really glad you said that, Juliet, because to that point, it's really important to include in your proposal statistics and studies. So I just interviewed Bonnie Gwynn, who is the vice chair of the ginormous global executive search firm, Heidrick and Struggles. And she talked about a new study that they just did that showed that in the first half of 2021, there was more turnover in the C-suite than ever.
Really?
And part of that was the main reason that we talked about was that it was because they had a new idea of the kind of CEO they wanted. They wanted a different kind of CEO. Mm-hmm. And one of the interesting things that came out of their different kind of CEO was they hired twice as many women into the C-suite as ever. Now, it's still a small number, but it's twice as many.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's great research, right? So that's the kind of statistic you want to put in a proposal. Or 72% of millennials say they want to buy products that are sustainable, and they'll only look at those, or they're willing to, or 62% of consumers say they'll pay more for a product that's environmentally friendly, which is actually real statistics. Actually, I think it's 70. So that's what I'm saying is then the agent and the publisher and all of the people in that when I say the publisher, remember, it's a whole group of people in a room that you don't have access to. Right. They can say, oh, this person knows their topic. They've done their research. They have their facts down. They know what they're talking about. And then they look at it. Doesn't mean you're going to get the deal. And it doesn't tell you how big your advance is going to be if you go with a traditional publisher. But it will at least get you in the door and to the table.
Right.
Right. So you build your credibility. You're absolutely right. Those are credibility building points, and your entire proposal is one giant description of your book and your credibility.
Absolutely. So the next part of this, you're going to get into the sample chapters, the writing pieces. We've had a lot of discrepancy lately. We've got some writing coaches who are saying you have to write the whole book first, which we've run into relevancy problems. By the time the book's written, the market's saturated. We have others that just said, write the proposal, start writing the book, but you understand you may have to self-publish. So what's the real, where are we really at with this?
Well, I'm going to answer that in 1 second, but there's one other section. By the way, a book proposal requires you to have sample chapters in it and an outline with a paragraph about each chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have thought this out. You can't just say, oh, I'm just going to do a book proposal, and if it sells, I'll write the book. Okay. So, and you have to do a competitive analysis.
Oh,
so how many other books that have, and it's not just anything on Amazon, it's I've had agents tell me they want they use an Amazon ranking just for organizational purposes of 0 to 150,000. So if you've got a book that's ranked 8,742,000 on Amazon, do not include it in your proposal. Okay,
Yes.
it does not, no. So to answer your question, what I would do with clients is they come to me saying they want to write a book. And sometimes they have written a manuscript, but it always gets a lot of work done. I've got a client right now that we're doing a lot of work on the manuscript and doing the proposal at the same time. So you start writing the book. What I do is I have them first, we build it brick by brick. Tell me what you want to write about. Why do you want to write a book? Who's going to buy this book? How do you know? What do you bring to the table? And then we do an outline of what the book is about and chapters. And then we start building it out. I have them write a few paragraphs about it. I don't do the writing. They do the writing, but I'm helping them do it. And I look at, by the way, how this book is going to help their business or career.
Right.
So if you want to speak about recycling, you want to do a book about recycling that shows about recycling. If you want to do a book about buying couture clothing, that's what you want to do your book about, right? So it has to go. For me, I do books that synchronize with their career, that support their career business. And so we start building, we do this outline and we kind of, okay, well, what topics do you want to include? And then a few lines for each paragraph, for each one, and then start building out each of those small lines of copy for each section. And then we do a deep dive. First, I like to have them write the introduction, because the introduction is kind of a short version of the whole book. Why am I writing this? What's the purpose? What inspired me to write this? Who is the right reader for this book? Why you should read this book, and what they're going to find in the book. I mean, some introductions have, in the first section, you'll find this, in the second section, you'll find that, in the third section, you'll find that. And some are, it doesn't matter what sequence you write them in. So like I'm doing a compilation of my career blogs into a book. You can jump around. We'll have them it's going to be organized in topics, but you can jump around. It doesn't have to be a start to finish book. It's not like a biography that you want to start at the beginning and go to the end, right? So that's how, and then when we get to a certain point of amount that they've written, we write an introduction, and then I have them start with the first chapter. And once we've gotten enough done and edited a certain amount, then we go back and we start doing the proposal. Okay. And so we talk about, because again, we've already talked about why do you want to write this? Who is it for, etc. So I pause them on the writing part. I mean, although it's relative, I had a client who wrote 170 pages before he paused on the rest of it. I mean, he kind of was a workaholic, so he kind of did both. And then we build out the proposal, but you can't build out the proposal until you actually know what you're going to write. And I call it the alchemy between the head and the fingertips. I'm a writer, so I don't always know exactly what's going to come out until I actually touch the keyboard. And so that's where the magic comes in. And then it's an editing process and an accumulation and a pushing, pulling and a dance, as you, I'm sure, do with your clients.
Yeah. So most people, or many people, they try to do this on their own. And there's so much that you just said that really requires a professional. So let's take the thing that just popped out at me first. So you're taking it, you're breaking it down, and you're breaking it down into what would pique the reader's interest. There are very few of us who can copyright. And what you're really doing in this proposal is somewhat copywriting. It has to be exciting. It has to be relevant. It has to be all of those things. And most people cannot copyright. So talk a little bit about that. The same thing with the bio. Rarely can you write your own bio in a way that I think we all kind of downplay ourselves a little bit. So talk a little bit about why you need a professional for this, because I really strongly believe you do.
Well, for a couple of reasons. One is, first of all, I find women downplay themselves and men exaggerate, but just thought I'd
well there are a lot of things they do that with.
Exactly. That's kind of a pattern, right? So and I love men, I have male clients, too. but please. But how can I say this? Especially for the bio, it's excavating from your experience what's relevant to this particular book. So you might write, I'm a successful, this person is a successful, yada, yada, yada. And you probably have a bio from your corporate life, or you have your LinkedIn thing or whatever. That's not, it's not about the book. Okay. That's not specifically tied to the book. Mm-hmm. And B, those kinds of things are geared towards they're mostly focused on kind of what you've done recently. And what we're talking about is anything in your experience that is relevant to that book. So if you're writing a book about how to design a business journal, and you have a story that you did in high school, you were the first, you started your yearbook, okay, or in your small town, you started the town newspaper. That's a relevant, sweet story to include in your bio. It pulls people in and says, what it says is, Juliet, it says, this person is in love with this project. This person is attached to this project. This person is going to do anything that they need to do to make this successful because they're really into it.
Well, not only that, you hit on something I think is really important with bios is it requires storytelling. You just don't lay out your credentials and, I went to school here, I did this, I worked there. Like, that's boring. You have to bring an element of storytelling into it.
Yes, you have to bring emotion into it. Yes, you have to evoke a response. The other reason you need it professionally written or professionally edited at least, is because I work with my clients and I have them write it and then we kind of edit it together.
Yeah, I do that too.
And I get input from some of the agents that I've worked with sometimes and et cetera. It's the best way to say this. You don't always, if you're an expert in this field, chances are you've forgotten more than I'll ever know about that field. Right. And so you need somebody else to say, explain this more, or that's a word that's not familiar to the normal public. You might use it every day in your office, but nobody else knows that word. Or how did you get there? Or explain this more, or what statistics do you have, et cetera. So you have to have, when you work with somebody else to help you write it, they're asking you questions that, yes, will be uncomfortable, will push you. They are not there to tell you you're wonderful and everything you write is brilliant. No, not if you want it to be successful.
Right.
You want somebody who's going to wrestle with you and say, look, my goal is for this book to be successful. And you're telling a story, but I don't even know what room they're in. I don't know what, I have a wonderful client who I just adore, who tends to write very flowery and metaphorically, but you can't always tell what the heck's going on. Because it's all it's like a metaphor on top of a metaphor on top of a metaphor. And I'm like, are they in a car? Are they in a theater? Are they in an office? Are they in where are they? Right.
Right.
Oh, well, they're, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, say that. So actually, Juliet, I often tell people who think they can't write, because everybody can write, in my view, varying degrees, is to talk into the voice memo on your phone.
Yes.
and then have it transcribed. Even send it to, post it to Temi.com or otter.com or one of those transcription sites, whatever, and have it and transcribe it. And then you can see it, and that will help you get started in writing it, because the best writing is how you talk. I joke with people. Actually, it's not a joke. People say to me, how did you get into this business? Communications, journalism, writ large, marketing, advertising. And I tell them I was born because my dad had an agency when I was a kid growing up in New York City. He was like one of the original madmen. And he would pull a copy out of the typewriter, hand it to the closest warm body he could find. There were four kids in the family, and say, read this out loud to me. And reading out loud is the best therapy for know how to write. Okay, so that's the other advantage to talking into your voice memo on your phone, is you're hearing yourself talk about it. And also, you know what? It's easier to tell a story when you're telling it than when you're writing it.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny because I write copy for other people, but when I write my own copy, I'll hand it off to my friend who's a copywriter, and she just laughs. She's like, really? This is your best work? Because she can pull so many of those things out of me and see, I tend to really tone it down. Like if you read what I wrote about myself, it's super boring. In fact, I'm going to address something you said earlier about you don't always use your past. When I was working with my second copywriter on my bio, he said to me, well, what have you done in the past? And so I'd had this bio that I've been using for about 3 years. And I said, well, I worked at Chiat/Day and I worked at Mattel. And he's like, wait, I don't see that anywhere. Like, what kind of account did you work on at Chiat/Day? He's like, isn't that like $1 billion a year account? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, why isn't any of this in your bio? And it was just something that I just took for granted. Like, doesn't everybody? Like, I didn't think it would be interesting. So, but that copy out loud, and I don't think personally that you can write copy for yourself very effectively. But when I actually took my phone and I recorded it and I sent it off to my copywriter, she wrote beautiful stuff out of the same thing that I thought sounded boring. So sounds like your dad had the right idea.
Absolutely. The other thing that happens is a lot of times when we think we're writing, okay, it's like we get into, I'm writing, it gets it's different than when you're just talking something out. We tend to write really long, complicated sentences. And I cannot tell you how many clients and even people who come to me with, journalistic projects, whatever. It's like, I could map this sentence, right? And I'm like, no, like, no. Okay. So it's better to keep it short and not necessarily staccato, but follow things around, keep it shorter, right? If you have to, it's one of the things about reading it out loud. If you have to take a breath to even get, or God forbid to get to the end of the sentence, it's too long.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. It's a great measure. It's human. We all have to breathe when we talk, right? So what a proposal does, and by the way, they are, in case I didn't say this before, or it's worth repeating, they are required by literary agents and traditional publishers. And a lot of hybrid publishers may not require them, but they love them.
Yeah.
Like, when I came to you with a client and I said, we're working on a book proposal, you're like, yes.
Yeah, I've been getting, the reason is when we were just a self-publishing company, we didn't get a lot, but with the hybrid, we get people who, for the most part, have worked, they have the proposal, they've worked with a writing coach, they've had their manuscript professionally edited already, but maybe they ran into the market was too saturated, or I really want this connected to my business and I don't want to give up the rights to it. So we get quite a few books. We have in about the last 2 years, everybody has time during COVID. really well-written books that use professionals and had proposals. And it is exciting because now I can see what you think your competition is, and I can agree or disagree with it and say, well, what about this? So,
well, and that's a really good point, because what happens is when you see what their marketing strategy is, you're not starting from scratch to market the book. You've got what they've already outlined, and then you can build upon that, and you can edit upon that, and it triggers creative ideas in your mind. Right. And when you work, when the author is working with a coach or somebody like you, then we can ask them questions that then take it to the next level. Because you don't just want the basic level of marketing. In today's world, you've got to be everywhere at once. And you've got, I mean, I have a client who doesn't even have children, but she has a husband and a dog. And for the launch of her book, she left and went and stayed in another city so she could just zero and focus for the launch of the book.
No children, huh? Children.
Right. Well, she tends to be a workaholic, and I think she wanted to like be out of her office with all the other stuff that was around her too. So I'm, it takes a lot of work. I mean, so I just want to say to anybody who's listening and watching this, if you think writing a book is easy and you see all these courses and say, I'm going to help you write a book in 90 days.
Yeah.
No.
Run.
Not if you want it to be good, and not if you want it to be credible, a credible representation of your expertise, and not if you want it to be really successful and meaningful in the world. And by the way, a lot of the traditional reviewers will not review a book that is self-published.
That's true.
They will review, obviously, traditionally published books, and some of them may review books by hybrid publishers. And you and I can talk about that a little more if you want, but you will not get them to review a book that is 100% self-published.
Right.
And so if you want those people to read your book, it has to be well written. It has to be well designed. It has to be, have graphics and pictures or what have you. It has to be well laid out. It has to have a good cover. It has, all of those things. And if you're just going, I'm going to write a book in 90 days and boom, 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 boom. No.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it. Just have lower expectations of it and understand that it might not do well for your credibility in your field. If you're only doing it for your grandkids, then that's one thing.
Yeah. Well, sorry.
I was just going to say, if you're doing it for the marketplace to help you, to your point in the beginning of this is, I want to write a book because it'll help me get speaking engagements. Well, okay, what are you going to speak about? And you need to have a book that's really well presented, because people are not going to want to sell your book if it looks like yuck.
Yeah, that's exactly true. Well, this has been really helpful today. Thank you so much, Joan. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and possibly work with you, where can we find you?
I am all over the web. They can find me on Twitter at Joan Michelson, without an A, Michelson. They can find me on my podcast, Electric Ladies Podcast. They can find me on my website, electricladiespodcast.com, on LinkedIn, Facebook, you name it, Instagram, whatever. But the best place is to find me on my website, or they can always contact you to be sent to me, or on Twitter.
Okay.
And I'm happy to chat with anybody.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. This was really helpful today.
Oh, good. I'm so glad, Juliet. And thank you for what you do, by the way. It's really, really important.
Oh, thanks.